Hi, everybody. I'm Dominique, and this is my critical race narrative. I have my questions over on this side and my notes over here, so I'll be looking back and forth to make sure I don't miss anything. All right, so let's dive right in. How did the racial identity development theory help me to understand my own racial identity development? I feel like, for one, it helped me to reflect on my journey, right? From a little girl to now, I was able to see how I saw myself as a black woman. Um, I was able to see how that shift had turned from pretty much going from negative to positive, right? I was able to really see the process of growing and healing and becoming more aware. Um, I was able to connect my personal to a whole bigger level of things, to where it's not just me feeling this way, and then connecting it to a whole larger system of things, a whole much larger power than what I stand on, right? And learning about this theory, it helped to validate how I was feeling as I was growing up, and that is honestly quite normal. um, the way that I was feeling, like when I was younger, when I would feel anger or confusion, and then when I started really finding myself again and being so proud of who I was and really developing into my own sense of self, and becoming my own person, and you know, it made sense and that it was actually quite normal. So to talk about what informed all this development, I say the biggest part would be my family. They are really big on black pride and resilience, and to be proud of who you are and where you come from, and that our ancestors worked very hard to have us where we are today, which is all very true. But being younger, you don't really understand that. But being an adult now, you really do see that, we did come from a long line of hard work. I feel like, personal experiences helped also inform me, and also community influences. And I grew up in a time where media was just becoming available and big. So I think as that became more accessible, I became more aware of how this was happening, or how this was going on more around me, and the social realities behind it. My role in the race of framing my social identity, I say that my role was more of how I understood myself, right? In my place in the world. And it wasn't just physical. My race wasn't just physical, but it was more shaping of how I was seen. It was how I was treated and how I was understood within society. And all of this influenced a lot of things. It influenced the opportunities I was offered, it influenced the biases I encountered, and the pride that I felt within my own community. Um, I feel like I first became aware of this way back in like elementary school. Um, and that's when it started to manifest, when I noticed that my black peers were being treated differently than our Caucasian counterparts, when it became issues of discipline, and how they were giving harsher punishments when they were in the same, in the same act, doing the same thing. And it kind of threw me off a little bit. But it happened so much at the same time, it became normalized, right? And I didn't really notice how normalized it was becoming, that they were then being labeled with the negative stereotypes. And even though it was normalized, it was sitting in the back of my head, and it was, you know, there, but it really became apparent leaving school and going into the workforce. And I feel like a time this has happened would be, a fight had broke out, and My black peers would be suspended for a whole week, and the white counterparts, even though they initiated the fight, would be suspended for a day or maybe get in-school suspension. And that was like really shocking. And you really can't do much as a child because you're a child, you are a minor, and I was always taught to, you do as you say, and a child is better seen and not heard, right? You stay out the way, especially as a black child. You stay out the way. You don't create trouble. You don't have trouble even look in your direction because you can get in trouble for anything. So I feel like the phase of Erikson's psychosocial stage this was in would be the identity versus role confusion, when this is roughly for the ages 12 to 18, which is about right. And this is a stage where self-image, values, and identity, which includes racial identity, is taking shape and is really valued, and it's important to kids at this age. And when you're being told all the time how you are bad, or you're always getting the finger pointed at and you're told how you can't do, it kind of sticks. So I feel like applying the critical race theory, one action I could take now as a social worker is advocating for more restorative justice practices in the school, right? Instead of punishing, kicking them out, sending them home, why don't we have more like circles, more restorative circles? Why don't we have more peer mediation? Instead of being quick to kick them out, why don't we do something more along those lines? I had read a quote saying that relative to white students, black students are 3.6 more times more likely to have been suspended out of school, 2.5 times more likely to have been suspended in school, 3.4 times more likely to have been expelled, and 2.4 times more likely to have been referred to law enforcement. And this is compared to their white counterparts. So we can do something different, you know, instead of just pushing them out, doing the school to prison pipeline. We can do other things, more relationship building, so we could teach accountability instead of just saying whatever, you're bad or you're not going to be anything. Thank you for listening.